No, we have come this day actually during one of the turbulent times in the country. And we can always say, living in the United States of America, we're always in turbulent times. I mean, it's not a time you can think when there's not turbulence. And one of the things that we need to be clear about is the history of our own people as well as the history of this country. And a lot of times people don't know our history. And if you don't know African American history, you have no understanding of the United States of America. You cannot be logical. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense because the fabric of the American society is built and based fundamentally on a number of problems that existed from the beginning. And that was the enslavement of the Africans, the genocide of the indigenous people, and the persecution of the Mexican people and the dispossession of their lands, and also the problem of taking away the rights of women. These were fundamental problems at the very beginning of the American society. And so in order to recover and to understand what's going on in the United States of America, the best thing that we can do is to understand our history and understand our culture. And then once we do that, we are in a better place. We are delighted at the Malefikete Asante Institute today. I welcome you to this wonderful space. This is, in a way, many times a sacred space for us because we come here and we are able to talk and discuss and to think and to write and to create without any interference. And that's a beautiful thing. And it gives us a great joy to see the number of people who come from time to time. And we're so happy to welcome those of you who are also in our program from all over the world, those of you who come to us from London and from Paris, particularly, and Brazil. We're very happy that you have come to join us on this YouTube event. And this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Today we have a special guest. We are just truly, truly, really delighted beyond words. And I'm just really happy that we have so many of you who have decided to come out and hear this wonderful system. Dr. Ife Williams, who is a professor of political science at the Delaware County Community College, is one of our stars in scholarship, particularly about resistance and about the role of African people in dealing with oppression. She is known for her work and has been recognized for her scholarship, her publications, her latest book, I think it's her latest, Police Brutality, particularly in Philadelphia. She's done that important book, a significant book. But I think more than that, the people who recognize her with the Mellon Grant, with the ACLS grant, and the people who have recognized her with the Fulbright Award, those people have recognized her for the meticulous nature of her scholarship and the detailed work that she has done in advancing the cause of African and African American scholarship. This woman is a leader. This scholar is an incredible person. She was the leader of the African Heritage Studies Association, that fabled organization that was started by Dr. John Henry Clark himself and a number of younger scholars who walked out. The African Heritage Studies Association, which she was president of, they walked out of the African Studies Association. That's how it was started. And I remember when it was started because I was at UCLA and I couldn't go to the conference because I had not finished my doctorate at the time or whatever it was. And they were meeting in Canada. and a group of black scholars, including Dr. James Turner from Cornell University, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Ronald Walters, they all walked out in a dramatic way of the African Studies Association, which was largely, and it still has to be looked at in a strange way, was an organization that became principally an organization of white scholars and their African graduate students. That's what it became. And if you're out there and you remember the African Studies Association, I'm giving you part of your history. I'm telling you, it was white scholars in different universities who taught African economics, African history, and the graduate students many times that they had handpicked to bring to the United States to teach. Some people thought it was a CIA agency. I never said that, and I never thought that. But some people said that, and they said it for various reasons. Some of the leading scholars in it, like somebody that I knew, was deeply engaged with American foreign policy at the time toward Africa, you see? So part of this African Studies Association, plus there's another aspect to this. They did not like to have African Americans engaged in the organization. They wanted Africans from the continent in the organization and white scholars, but not African Americans. And so the African Americans called them to task. They said, wait a minute, why are you going to separate our brothers and sisters from us like that? Why are you going to have an organization, African Studies Association, and not deal with Africans in the United States? So they created an organization almost on the spot, led by the venerable, incredible John Henry Clark, the African Heritage Studies Association. She was the president of that organization. We're delighted to have you. She has a PhD from Clark Atlanta University, one of the universities that I love. One of my colleagues, Kurt Young, is now the chair of that Department of Political Science, and Kurt has spoken here before. I'm just delighted, happy to have someone with her talent and her skill and her knowledge coming to speak to us here today at the Malefi Kete Asante Institute. And on behalf of the board members who are here, Brother Carlton Sudan and Dr. Jabali Ade and all of us, I want to give thanks and praise to Dr. Ife Williams for her courage and her intelligence and her ability. So the floor is yours, and we're just delighted for you to come up and.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's a tall order. I should have recorded that. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Oh, and I'm tell you a joke. Dr. Asante did the schedule for the fall and put my name on it, and I hadn't talked to him. So I figured, well, he put it on there, I guess I have to show up, right? So he did. He sent me a couple of more emails, but they were announcements, so I didn't bother answering, right? And so he was so surprised to see me when I came today. He's like, you're here. I didn't know you were coming. Yeah, okay. All right, so thank you very much, and thank you. That was such a warm introduction. Okay, so this is my site, and as you can see, things are moving around. It's called Black Slave Revolts. Now, I went back and forth a little bit with the name, because everybody said, okay, we should do enslaved. But what it is the internet is driven by words. And so how many people are going to look for enslaved black people in the United States? You know, but they will look for slave. So that's why I did this. So this is the home page. And what you see here, bouncing back around, are little videos. What I did for this map is I hired graphic artists to do depictions of some of the actual revolts. And then after I put the map together, I said, unless you go to that particular revolt, you will never see the work that they did. So I selected a few of them and put them up the top, and I'll show you. So this is the website, and it begins with about, and what I do is I give it an overview of slavery, because now on the internet, of course, the words are slavery never even existed. You know, that's what they're saying. So I wanted to give an overview of slavery, and then I have the map. So this is actually, I started with a Google map, and then I changed it. So about the project, how did I get started? I really believe that this project is ancestral driven, like everything else. What I was doing, I was working on a documentary. I did a short documentary entitled Africa's Not a Zoo on the displacement of indigenous people for game parks. And I was working with the editor one day, and I said, you know, I would really like to do something on slave revolts. And they said, why don't you do a map? And they showed me how to do a Google map, and that's how it got started. And then I worked on it on and off for a few years, and then you know, like everything else, you put it down, do other things. And then right before the pandemic, I started working on it full time. And I put it online 2020 on African Heritage Studies website. I was still a president, so I could do what I want. and I had over 240,000 views. I'm like, what? It just kind of went viral. So this is one of the stories. This is Solitude. She led a revolt in Guadeloupe, and you can see she was visibly pregnant at the time. And she was responsible for luring the French into a fort, and then they blew up the fort, but she survived. And so they put her in prison, and then after the baby was born, they executed her and gave the baby to the owner, her owner. I wish I had a mouse. This is hard for me to navigate. Okay, so that's overview of that. And then, again, slavery. People are saying, you know, slavery did not exist. So I just did a basic page, because my target audience in my mind is like a 16-year-old, you know, who knows nothing about slavery or our history. And so I wanted to be as friendly as possible. So I used the map. This is my second favorite map to my own. This is by Dr. Joseph E. Harris at Howard University. This is the best map. And he shows everywhere African people were taken. You know, usually we think of just the west coast of Africa, and as you see here, Africans were taken everywhere, Australia, and even here in Nagasaki. So in Nagasaki, Japan, there's actually a little hood. We were taken everywhere. So I used that. And then, of course, the largest number went to Brazil. And these are some of my homemade videos. And I didn't want to put them up because they're not, like, pristine. But then somebody said, you know, people may not have ever seen these images before, so put them there. So I have slavery in Tanzania, Brazil, Nigeria, where people can look and see what happened. And then to really convince them, I did a couple of my favorite PowerPoints on slavery. And the best one, of course, is images of slavery in Brazil, because slavery in Brazil lasted longer than anywhere else. So we have actual photographs. These are other depictions. So that's that page. And then my team, I used, of course, my students. Well, this was my editor from Scribe Video. Many of you know Scribe Video. That's where I got my start, Scribe. And these were some of my students, people I work with, friends. And these are the ones who did some of the depictions. Now, Ronald, I thought he lived in Chicago. I saw some of his work in another video, and he lives in South Africa. Yeah, so it got international, so he's back on the project again. And this is like the UN of people. You see this? I have Asians, everybody here. And but this is the star here. This is Stephen, and he's in Kenya. And I found him on a site called Upworks, and he's still working with me. And what I did was I solicited my friends to narrate some of the revolts. So these are all the people. And I wanted some of the revolts to be in the words of the people who lived there. So I have a sister from Haiti and a brother from Barbados. Now we get to the famous map. I just had to show you, I'll introduce you to the site. So when you go into the site, come on, open up. Okay, so here's the map. So what I did was I color-coded, these are little chains. I don't know if you can see, you'll see them up close. But I color-coded each revolt. So I have red for, let me see, no, I have black before the 1700s, green for the 1700s, red for the 1800s, and yellow for the 1900s. Yes, I go into the 1900s. Everybody says, well, you know, slave trade ended in 1808. Well, now we know we have the ship Clotilda. We know that no, you bringing slaves in, Africans in all the way up to the 1860s. And actually, when we look at East Africa, we see the trade going on to 1940. Yeah. So I had to come into the 1940s. So my first goal was to just have somebody just to look at it, and you can just see the number of revolts that took place. And I have to really be honest, even though Dr. Asante said that I was a star historian, when I began this project, I was thinking, okay, slave revolts, you know, you name a couple off the top of your head, you know, we all know Toussaint and what. I said, okay, maybe 20, 30, what do we know, right? When I got up to 150, I was like, oh my God. Then I got up to 206, actually it's almost 280. And these are the ones that I found, because what we have to understand was during slavery, Black people had a network, and they could tell each other things, and the white people knew that. So a lot of things they didn't want written down, right? So we can't find it in the newspapers. I mean, some Black people had gotten good at reading lips. They could read the lips of the master and tell what was going on, because they were trying to hide things from them. So these are the ones that I uncovered. Now, here you see, I hope you can see, these are little ships. Can you see these little ships? Okay, there were over 400 documented revolts on the ships. 400. And that was in the book, and this was through archival research in the book by Eric Taylor, If We Must Die. So what I did was I went through all 400, and then I selected 100 that I saw as being successful. What was my criteria? They killed all the white people and they got away. Yeah, I mean, that was basic. That was successful, right? And so out of that, I put 100. And if you notice here, where did many of those revolts take place? And I love this because so many Black people have in their mind that our ancestors were just standing on the shores, just saying, here, take them, right? And I've seen the number, I've seen it twice, where 1 in 4 ships had revolts, all the way up to 1 in every 9. So somewhere between there. And the majority of those took place right here along the coast, So I had 100, and then what I did was I selected 58, where I could give different aspects of ship revolts. So if you open all 58 of them, then you'll get a good idea. And now just put a pencil here. What happened was, some kind of way, the Smithsonian found the map. I don't know how they found it, because like I told you, it was on African Heritage Studies Association website, deep down in the site, right? But they found it. And, I got a letter, an email from si.edu, and I'm like, SI, they tell you don't open up strange emails, And I'm like, SI, what school is that, And then I looked and said Smithsonian, and it was a Smithsonian, and what they wanted was they wanted my 100 ships, and to be a part of their exhibit that's going to open December 13th. It's called In the Wake of Slavery. And what they're doing is what they call pairing objects. So they'll have slave shackles and handcuffs, okay? Just to show where black people are today, globally, and it's a global exhibit. So it's going to be in Washington for 6 months, and then it's going to Liverpool, South Africa, Senegal, Brazil, and Belgium. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I keep telling, all my friends are really excited. I keep telling them, it's only the ships. My name is this big, okay? It's in color. And my friends are like, so we don't care. We're gonna go, we're gonna take a picture, we're gonna blow it up, because, yeah, so yeah, I'm really excited about that, okay? So now, the way I did it was every one of these markers, just like when you go to Google, like looking for a restaurant, it tells you, where it is, what the menu is. Every one of these markers has information, images, video, citations, every one. So that was, it was a little bit of work. Just a little. I need the tech guy because I'm having a hard time. Where is he?
There he is.
I'm having a hard time managing this. Yes, be a mouse. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. This is. Okay.
Sacred grove of deadly touch, we fly. Into words, our fires cry. Horrific, hollow agreements made in watery graves. And again, some jumped for the rest to stay. And again, some leaped, so all would not die. And again, some sank for the rest to survive. And again, some flew, so the rest could try. Mingled blood at the tip of our arrows, maroon in the hills, humming in the campus, gathered without sacred grove of deadly touch, we fly. Into words, our fires cry. Horrific, hollow agreements made in watery graves. And again, some jumped for the rest to stay. And again, some leaped, so all would not die. And again, some sank for the rest to survive. And again, some flew, so the rest could try. Mingled blood at the tip of our arrows, marooning in the hills, humming in the cane break. We gather and die to live again.
Wasn't that fantastic? Thank you. So that was, oh, you're going to love her name. Angela Davis Johnson. And when I saw that, I mean, it just brought tears to my eyes. I think it was the people jumping off the ship, but that was her rendition of, so I wanted to share that with you. So like every marker that you open has an image. Here you go. Then I have text that tells you about it, and it's no more than 200 words, because I couldn't get more than that. And then I have citations for each image. And then I have citations for where I got the information from, hoping that, you know, again, students or whoever will follow up and do some research. And everything is right there for them, right? So that's what each marker looks like. All right. Now, y'all making me nervous. All my friends, I don't believe so many people came. Okay, I'm gonna calm down. All right. So now, going back to the ships, some speculate that the number of women on a ship was directly related to the propensity for revolts, okay? Women were often on deck, and they were able to pass information to the men. They could tell the men the movements of the crew, and they could also tell where the weapons were hidden. Women not only involved themselves in almost every revolt, but many planned and implemented the revolts. And that's the question I get asked the most. What about the women? Okay, so we have women, let me see, start in 1695. You had, I'll just open a few for you. Anna de Bengal, you had, where is she? So it's two ways that you can actually do the map. You can go use the key here, or you can just open up particular revolts. Oh, why can't I find, oh, I didn't get to her yet. 1695, Mauritius. There you go. And this was one of the first ones led by a woman, Anna de Bengal. She was a leader. She was the leader of the revolt. And she had a massive rebellion, and she also had a few other people working with her, which is different because the other ones where I have women involved in the leadership is usually the men who follow, the women who follow the men, but this particular one, it was a woman, all right? And of course, she was executed. You have, since Carlton is here, I'll do the one his wife did for me. You have, this is one of my favorite ones, 1743 in Montreal. You had a black woman who almost burnt down the entire town. Yeah, what happened was, what the kids say, what had happened was, she overheard her master say that they were going to sell her because she had a bad attitude. Yeah. Yeah, so she organized.
Master said he gonna sell me. Didn't like the way I acted. That I was too hankety. Ain't know my place. I show messing all up. I show 'em who I were all right. They don't know. I show 'em who I is.
She was great, right? That's cool. Yeah, that's a Bieber Carlton's wife. She did that for me. That's one of my favorites too. I always show people that one. Then you had Carlotta in Brazil. Oh, here's the one I told you about with Solitude. I already told you about that one. When was Carlotta? It was 1843. She led a major revolt. Her and another sister, it was two sisters together, led a revolt there. Okay. No. Why can't I find her? Is this her? Yeah. Yep. No, this one, her grandson was killed, and she wanted information about it, and she was just in the street crying, trying to get, and it started a major revolt there. I can't find my other one. In Cuba. This is the latter revolt. So like I said, each one that you open will tell you about that particular revolt. Okay. Now, Maroons. Now, during this project, I had to watch out. Like many of you know in your own work, the biggest thing is avoiding those rabbit holes. Especially when you're online. How many of you have gone online to purchase maybe something for your house, and then 2 hours later, you're all over the place? So I had to make some hard decisions, and one of them was the Maroons. That's a life all its own. You could just do, because the Maroons were everywhere. Everywhere you had enslaved people, you had Maroons. There were many Maroons right here in the United States, all right? So that's a whole nother history. So I didn't want to go there. But what the significance of the Maroons in terms of the revolts is that they were actually incubators for revolts, because the people would stay there and go back and forth. And the other thing we have to keep in mind is we're talking about a 400-year period. So during different times, you're going to have different phenomena. It's just not one thing. But your revolts are very, very there are a lot of revolts. And the success of those Maroons is that it forced the Europeans to negotiate with them. And we see that in Jamaica, where, and this is still a little controversial today with the Maroons in Jamaica. What they had to do was return the Africans back into slavery. Well, that's what they had to do in order to, but it's kind of controversial even now. So we see, especially in here you go, in Jamaica, you have your Maroon Wars, where the people were returned. There you go, see the picture of them negotiating, right? We have one in Dominica in 1795, and the real significance of these Maroons is that they set up communities that are still in existence today. I mean, if we go to Brazil, we still see the Colombos. The people are still there, That's right. They're still there. So they were very, very important. We had Guyana. Now, Guyana is very significant. They were the closest to Haiti in terms of success, because the Maroon community was so large, and they were everywhere. It took them a long time to put this revolt down. There were over 2,000 African people involved in this. Yeah, and here we're going to see another phenomenon, which I'm going to show you. Here you see they traveled. Sometimes you think about revolt, you think about one plantation, one group of people. But in actuality, in a lot of these, they moved around. They went from plantation to plantation, gathering people up. And also, they lasted a long time. This one in Guyana lasted 13 months. It took 13 months, and they had to bring in other Europeans from other islands and to subdue them. So there was a time factor involved. Why don't you go off? Oh, okay. All right, causes. Oh, for Maroon communities, I do want to add 1835, the Seminole community in Fort Mose, right here in Florida. We don't hardly think about what was going on in America, but you had a major African existence, and they fought. It took them a long time to put them down in Florida. And we can see, and I can show you the map too, maybe. Okay, you can see how far how they were stretched throughout Florida before they were actually put down. These are African people. Okay. Now, what are some of the causes? Of course, people say, oh, enslavement. By the time you get to the 1800s, pretty much you would say a population had realized, okay, we're going to be in slavery. They tried to negotiate, because you have to look at slavery as labor. So they tried to negotiate. So what happened in 1831 in Antigua, they wanted their market day. You know, it's Europeans. They just wanted that one day a week where they could go to market and be around their friends, sell their goods. And the Europeans took that away from them. Okay, well, then that started a major revolt. Okay, you have in Jamaica, same thing, the Baptist War. It was all about labor. They wanted their hours cut shorter. They wanted to have the Sunday off. You know, just basic things. And then everybody's, no, we're not doing that. And that started a major, that's what I call the labor movement going wrong, because they were really burnt out. And here's another one that was started by women, was in St. Croix in 1878. Women actually started this movement. They were trying to fire burn. Again, they started out trying to negotiate, started out as a peaceful demonstration. They wanted higher wages. Well, they wanted this, because this is after slavery has so-called ended, okay? And they wanted wages, and it was peaceful, and you can see what happened. It just went bad. And you see, it was 3 women who led that. And this is the statue that they have. And actually they have, and this one is in Denmark. Yeah, so she's, right? So now, many of the revolts were spontaneous. Others were actually planned. And all kinds of people were involved. All kinds of things went wrong. And I'm thinking about one. Remember, the guy planned the revolt. He got everybody. I was just looking at the last thing. He got everybody involved, and then he went and told the master about it.
Oh my God! Whoa!
Yep. So all the people were captured and killed, and he was given some money and sent somewhere else. So, I mean, yeah, all kinds of people. Tacky revolt is a good one, because that one actually shows you 1760. That one actually shows you again the time element and the movement, because they moved all over Jamaica. And there's a good book by Vincent Brown, right? Let me see, let me show you. These are controversial statues that they put in Jamaica to commemorate slavery. And Jamaicans are like, why'd you make them naked? You couldn't put clothes on them? I don't know. They don't like this. It's down in their Emancipation Park. Yeah, so Professor Vincent Brown, here he is. We did a selfie. He did a book, and he has a website just on Tacky's revolt. Yeah, because it lasted a long time, and they moved over the entire island. Jamaica has so many revolts. You can't even see Jamaica. You see right here, all these. That's Jamaica alone. They have more revolts than anybody else. Right? And also, you know, what we also have to keep in mind is the movement of people. People were being moved from one island to another, to South Carolina, back. And so if you were a troublemaker, they may not have wanted to kill you. They may have sent you to another island. And that's what some Europeans say why we had so many in Jamaica, was they were sending a lot of the troublemakers there. Oh, another one, just to show you how they had planned these things. I really like this one, 1795 in Curacao. Curacao has a little tiny island, but the next time y'all go on a cruise, go to Curacao. They have one of the best Black history museums I've ever seen. Really, for this little tiny place. And Tula. Here's another one, a revolt. You have a woman. It was a woman and two men. And it's funny, they don't name the woman. They name the Tula and the other guy. But what happened, I got an animator to do a little cartoon of it. But they went from plantation to plantation. And every year, they commemorate that revolt. They just travel to each one showing it. And just to show you the level of organization, in Barbados, they even had a flag. They made their own flag. And some of them, they had costumes. They would dress, they really put a lot of time. And it wasn't just, we're sick of slavery, let me just get up and run. Here's buses. The buses rebellion. Here's the statue in Barbados. Here's the flag. That took time. Right? Yeah, they really planned this out. And, okay, so we talked about the time factor. St. John, that revolt lasted 7 months. Guyana, 13 months. Tacky's revolt lasted a couple of years. Because they would put it down. It was like a fire. You put a fire out in one spot and it pops up in the other. It was just popping up all over. Okay, about culture. Now, I'm not really convinced of this argument, but what Europeans say that Africans from different ethnic groups were more prone to be enslaved than others. And I really think that's really racist. But then, and this is what they say. And they say, and where you have a lot of revolts, like Jamaica, you'll have the Akan people from Ghana, the warriors, or the Coromantes, okay? So here we see the role of culture. But I look at it in terms of time. Because again, we have to realize, they started taking Africans out in the 1500s. So they're fighting. By the time you get up to 1800, they had acculturated themselves to European ways and away from their own African roots. But places where people were more engaged with their Africanness, you find more revolts. And we'll see that actually when we look at the revolutionary movements in the 1960s, culture becomes the major weapon. The more people are engaged in their culture, know who they are, the more successful their revolts actually are. But what you have in other terms of culture, I look at the Muslims. Your Muslim, especially in Brazil, here you really see culture, because part of their culture is we're not going to be enslaved, by no means. And again, part of it was negotiating. Let us have our religious practices. Respect us, And white people are like, no, we're not doing that. So but they didn't have any choice but to organize themselves and revolt. So we see in Brazil, you have many, but 1807 and 1835, those revolts were led by the Muslims. And they were, I should open one up, they were dressed up in all white. They had their religious symbols with them. And they went out to, let me see if I have this one. Yeah. So they were very, very organized. I have a friend, Tia, for people who know me. She collects crystals. And I'm like, they're nothing but rocks. You know what I mean? She's like, this one has this property, this one. Yeah. But then when I ran across, what did I come across in Brazil? They're crystals. And this is what some of the warriors had with them, so I told her I wasn't going to tease her anymore about them. But you see here, they were all dressed up, and they went out. And then they timed it just right. They timed, and a lot of them, they timed them around holidays, when they knew white people were going to get drunk. They tried, yeah. So they tried to do them where the people would be most vulnerable, and then they would go out and have these revolts. So it's a lot to it. They just didn't do it. And the other thing that I came across was, and this is an interesting argument, I don't know how many people will go through with it, is what historians are now saying is that the Civil War in America was actually the largest slave revolt. Yeah, if you think about it, you know, because even if they were fighting on the other side, what were they fighting for? It was a slave revolt, and it was all about labor, right? And the other interesting thing about the Civil War, I like this picture, is what we see by the time you get to 1861 is you see a theological shift. And we see this again in the 1960s after non-resistance and then going to the Panthers' armed resistance. We have a theological shift. You know, we start seeing in the modern era Jesus as a warrior. So what these are arguing is your first couple hundred years, black people had a theology of God, of them being cursed or whatever and being subordinate. But by the time you get to 1860s, you get a theological shift because black people believe, no, we're not supposed to live like this. God didn't make us live like this. And that's what they say accounts for the number of revolts after that period. It's an interesting argument, you know. One I would like to delve into larger, but I don't know. But look how many. I put them all here just to show people all of these citations. Look at the citations. So this is not just one Negro who's trying to feel good and said that the Civil War was a revolt. Most of these are white scholars. As a matter of fact, there's only one black scholar, Earl Henderson. So this is you see by the years of their books, this is a new scholarship coming out in terms of revolt. I thought that was interesting. Now, who's who? Who's who? A lot of these revolts, like I said, were planned. They were very precise. Well, who was doing that? Your artisans, you're educated, you're free blacks. And then the question would be, okay, you're free, so why would you lead a revolt? Because freedom wasn't freedom. You know what I'm saying? You were free, but you didn't have any control over yourself as a laborer. You couldn't determine how much you were going to get paid. You couldn't determine how much your goods were going to be sold for. You did not get the same respect as another white person. So in that sense, you have this population of free blacks or educated blacks that started a number of revolts. And you can tell by looking at the precision of the revolt, it wasn't just done with some field hand was just like, I'm sick of this and I'm going to do something. And here we have, especially in Haiti, you had your blacks, your décolor. And again, I wanted to use the voices of people who lived there. So I'm gonna just play this one. Well, I don't know why it's just showing half of it.
From colonialism, there had been a sharp line between the mulattoes and the blacks that still exist today. In 1790, a member of the mulattoes or gens de couleur had instigated an uprising aimed at gaining political rights but not abolishing slavery. After independence, all the presidents and those in ruling position came from the gens de couleur. The blacks, however, motivated by economic disadvantage, increasing harsh work conditions to repair the economy and marginalization from the political arena, rebelled. The result was the installation of a black president, but most of the inequalities remained.
To this day. They're still dealing with the same contradiction. You also had white people. And okay, we all know John Brown, but there were a number of whites who actually started, but very few of them were actually hung or lynched. They would be either run out of town, but some of them did leave, some for religious reasons, some just for moral reasons. They actually masterminded some of the revolts. Now, my favorites are what we call slaves in uniform. You had a number of mercenaries. You had these black, and this is what happened with the Bussa revolt in Barbados. You had the Africans who were actually revolting, and then they look over and they see these black soldiers coming, and they were like elated. Oh man, we got them now, right? And then what happened? As soon as the black soldiers got there, they put them down, right? Yeah. And what is interesting is all of these countries, the Spanish, the French, they had to use black people in their army because they didn't have enough, which of course made the whites this is a good image. This is the West Indian Regiment, made the whites really nervous. So you're going to use these blacks against us, especially the use of blacks by the Spanish in Florida, and those whites in Georgia and South Carolina. So you're going to have these people come and attack us. Now, even though they were part of the regiment, they were still treated as slaves. They got less money, bad conditions. Sometimes they were even whipped, for all types of infractions. So you do have mutinies. You have a number of mutinies. One was in Dominica, where, it's just like, we're not taking this anymore. And then they would be, here it is, Dominica. Yeah, they're not going to take it anymore. This was one of the largest revolts by black soldiers in Dominica. You had 475 privates who said they were not paid what they should have, and instead of doing things that the military should do, they had them doing things like digging trenches and other type of labor that what they call resembled slavery. And another thing they would do is, okay, if you mutinied or you act up, they would just put you back into slavery. And that was one of the reasons why they mutinied, because they had heard a rumor that they would be put back into slavery. So they had that. So I think the best discussion of these black mercenaries is, of course, by Gerald Horne and his work. He really goes into detail. But I just think it's so fantastic. Slaves in uniform, because that's what they were. And then you would think that they would use the black people who had been enslaved for a period of time. No, they would take black people, Africans, right off the ship and put them in. So then they'd have to worry about any allegiance between them and the Africans. You keep them separate, right? Yeah, that's slaves in uniform. Punishments, oh my God. Punishments, it was just horrific. I don't even know how there's a line in Pulp Fiction where Samuel L. Jackson says, "I'm gonna go medieval on you." Oh my God, they really went beyond medieval, because part of it was they wanted to send a message, And I mean, some of the things were so horrific. I think it's saying that in one island, St. Lucia, the Africans had revolted. And when they saw that they were going to be overcome, they all committed suicide. They jumped into the river. 300 of them just committed suicide. They'd rather commit suicide than to be punished by whites. That's how terrible the punishments were. I mean, they did all kinds of things to people. It's just unimaginable. And that's another thing I had to take into account in doing this, because I said, well, young people are looking at it, but they look at all kinds of things on TV. So, so I tried to edit it a little bit, but not much. And this is another rabbit hole. What do you do with suicides? Are suicides revolts? Is a suicide a form of resistance? You have to think about it. And so what I decided, this is my map, the suicides where they took the white people with them. That's resistance. That's resistance, right? Yeah, take some white people with you. Yeah, and they did that. And that was on the cover of Beyonce's album, Lemonade. She showed the people going into St. Simon, walking into the water. They actually walked into the water, and they took their captives with them and drowned them. Oh, here it is. That was 1803, Igbo.
That's right. That's the Igbo.
They actually walked them. And then the artist did some renditions of them. Yep. So yeah, suicide, that would, and then another categorization. How do you determine if it's a revolt? Do you determine if it's 3 people, 5 people, or more than one? So that becomes a historical question. And I say even if it's one person, like you saw, like let me just show y'all a very frightening one that my student did. We had one, he was called Three Finger Jack. He was just one person, but he drove the white people crazy. Of course, it's not moving for me. Oh, wait a minute, I can do it this way. Okay. This is the South African did this for me. He terrorized white people. He did a nice job on that, right? He got the point across. Yeah, a book just came out about Three Finger Jack. He was killing white people left and right. They couldn't put him down. So I mean, if you had one person, you know, that I just like to show I like that. And Margaret Bradley, she was here in Pennsylvania, in York, Pennsylvania, and started a revolt there. So she was home. So now, to conclude, you know, enslavement, when we talk about enslavement, and I know I didn't go into details about the punishments, but just think of the most horrible thing you've ever seen, and that's the type of things that they did. But, you know, slavery itself is like what some authors are saying is a social death. It's a social death because you don't have any rights. You're being stripped down to a bare life. You don't exist. Your death can be ordered at any time, and it won't even register as a homicide. You know, you're just gone. You're sacrificed. You're left. So you're biologically alive, but you don't have any rights or expectations. You can be castrated, molested, beaten at any time. And within this overarching fear, one makes a decision that regardless of what's going on around me, I'm not going to let this defeat me spiritually, emotionally, or mentally. So when you have to just think about all the forces against our ancestors, and for them to just make up in their mind, yeah, I may not get away with this, but I am not living like this, to make the decision itself to revolt, you know, which was actually a crime. I don't know how they, all right, if you think about running away, was it drapetomania? They thought that was a disease, you know? So if you thought about revolting, oh my God, just thinking about it, you don't even have to plan it. So again, in terms of categorization, some of them I included because they weren't successful, but they planned it. And I'm thinking about, the courage it took. And how do you trust one another, and the organization to just plan a revolt, So we have to understand that Africa has been under duress for over 500 years. We had the Arab subjugation, we had endemic warfare, and the European invasion. According to Charles Finch III, African population was 700 million in 1500. 700 million. By 1900, it was 90 million. 90 million. So what we're talking about here is just extermination, just genocide, okay? And this is just in Africa. Then once we look at each, especially the islands, if you look at the numbers of Africans that were brought in and then look at how many were there at independence, it was endemic genocide. It just killed off all the majority of the people. Yes, this number changes around, but I'll go with it. 40% of Africans were complicit with enslavement. I say 40%, but no, we need to look at that 40%. What does that 40% actually represent, How many people were complicit under duress? How many chiefs were killed because they would not negotiate? How many were sent in exile? Right? So yeah, you can say they were complicit, but how? Right? And then also you had, as I mentioned, endemic warfare. So you're fighting against another. And we have now, Dr. Sante's book, clear evidence of the Europeans actually instigating warfare between people in order that they could take advantage and and take people out. So it's a big, and I'm saying that because black people always want to say that, we were on the shore, we did it, we were endemic, we have to put this again in perspective. And again, like I tell people, you're talking 400 years. You're not talking a week or a day. And I think that's how a lot of people look at our history. We look at one occurrence, and it was much more than that. And then finally, you had some outliers. I didn't show you that. You had, like I showed you on the map, you had Australia, you had Nagasaki. You had some outliers where you had revolts. And here you have Madagascar. Again, black people think, we only came from West Africa. But as you can see with this map, everywhere African people went, there were revolts. I can't show you Australia. But Australia, you would have a number of revolts. So we were all involved. So in conclusion, these were our ancestors. And the same DNA that's in them is in us, right? So central to the reparations movement is our connection between slavery and its legacy in the present. So by looking at these revolts, we can examine our true history. Psychologically, we were so beaten down that we need to look at these revolts to combat the whole shroud of shame that encapsulates our race. We got to get away from that. We have to move beyond that and beyond misinformation and know who we are. As Bob Marley say, refuse to be what you wanted us to be. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Tugu, will you put the light on? And Dr. Jabali, will you want to just check? Yes. Wow. My goodness. Yeah, the mic. Is it okay? Thank you so much, sister. You have just enlightened us today. I'm telling you. I mean, I was sitting there taking notes. I said, "This is no shoot. Oh no, this was very powerful." And I am just so happy, and I know that there are some comments and some questions. And do you want to take a break, or are you okay? We can, all right. Brother Ransom, first question.
Okay, I wanted to ask her something about Haiti. The importance of culture. The the Fine people were the largest ethnic group in Haiti, but you had several different other African
sorry.
ethnicities in Haiti. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of culture in the Haitian Revolution?
No, I was just looking at this voodoo and religion, and that has been our strength. And now I know Dr. Garvey, Marcus Garvey's son, his whole platform now is reviving African religions and going to using Haiti as a platform, using Condé from Brazil and using voodoo to re-educate ourselves to get that strength, because that was the driving force. And also in what was now known today as Uganda and Tanzania, and a lot of those, I didn't talk about a lot of the African revolts, but they use religious, what do you call them, the little artifacts, and they put the white, and they put the white all over them, and the spiritual belief that the bullets were like water, would not kill them, all of that. That's part of that religion. So we see religion and our African religions used as a major weapon in a lot of these revolts, especially in Haiti and Brazil.
Thank you so much to Dr. Son and Dr. Williams. That was amazing lecture and information that you shared with us today. I know you didn't focus on the African revolts, but I was wondering if you ever heard of the Kanj, K-A-N-J rebellion. Who was involved, if you know, and where did it take place?
Where?
And do you know of any other rebellions in that area?
Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah,
Asante.
thank you very much.
What do you think?
Yeah,
What was that?
yeah. Just the question. I think brother is asking a question about the Zanj rebellion in Baghdad in 900, and I think that one of the questions that I had for Dr. Williams was that this was a detailed discussion of the European enslavement and resistance to. But at some point, another wing of this would be how Africans also resisted the Arab enslavement.
Right. I have that. It's
Oh,
here.
good. That's good.
Yeah, because that was one of the earliest.
Oh, good. That's good.
It's right here. Is this the Zanj? Oh, okay, this was the Barbary Coast, AAA. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah.
Good too.
That was too. That was when you had white, because the whites like to
That's
always
right,
say
that's
that.
right.
We were enslaved too. They like to say that, yeah. I do have the Zanj revolt. Yeah, I think that's it right here. I think that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Hotep.
Hotel.
I think I heard you say earlier that they're pushing the notion and that there was no such thing as slavery. Did I hear you say that?
Yes, I did.
Who's doing that? And
If you just go to YouTube and put in slavery and look at some of the videos that come up. And there are people on there that say, you have to do more videos on YouTube, Dr. Sante, that say that slavery did not exist. And there are very few. Here it is, the Zanj Rebellion, 869 to 883. And I started off, esteemed scholar John Henry Clark held that it was the Arabs who began the trade in Africans, exporting over 14 million from the eastern region, and then the Europeans internationalized it.
That's right.
Right. So here you have, so go to the map, go to 869, and you'll see the Zanj Rebellion, and I have a little video there. Is that it? Good.
Okay.
Oh. One more?
One more question.
Could you talk about the relationship between today, the United States government, and the countries like Jamaica where there were huge rebellions?
And Haiti.
Yeah.
Haiti, how they're treated, the policies.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm in the reparations movement, and what I keep trying to get my people to do is Haiti. We need to just all focus on Haiti, you know, because I think that would set the precedent. Because we know, we have evidence. The New York Times did a wonderful piece on the French. We know them by name. We know every one of those French people who sold money from Haiti.
That's right.
You know, we look at the Eiffel Tower. The money from Haiti built that.
Right.
That should be that should be our focus, because I think best practices. If we get reparations, and the United States owes a huge debt to Haiti. We went in time and time again. We don't want to talk about that, right? And make that our poster child, and then all other reparations will fall from that. That's just my own theory from that. And then lastly, just one more point. I did receive another grant, an NEH grant, National Endowment of Humanities, and I'm doing 1944 to 1994. I'm doing anti-colonial and civil rights movements. And I told Dr. Sante I fell and hit my head, because I should have just done 1968. 1968, 1 year, right? Because you can't talk about 1944 unless you go back to 1934, George Patmore and the labor movements, and so again, and that would bring us up to the present. So that's what I'm currently working on.
One last way in the back. Just one. I'm sorry.
So that map is going to go on the same website, but it's going to be a separate map. So
that's as for.
It'll be May. What year is this?
2024.
May 2025 is going to be on this same site.
Okay, Brother Carl. Go.
Thank you very much, Professor, for this very, very enlightening presentation and for your book. Other than perhaps Haiti, are you aware of any other African-controlled nations which celebrate the revolts of our people during slavery?
Mm-hmm. All of them.
That's right.
All of them. And it's very interesting. They don't even know the history.
That's right.
Barbados, St. Lucia, Curacao, all of them have, Martinique, they all have what we call Africa Day. Instead of Black History Month, they have Africa Day. And the centerpiece for Africa Day is the revolt that took place. And so they know of the revolts, but we're the only place that we don't celebrate any of our heroes. But everywhere else, let me just say this, everywhere in the Caribbean, Africa as a whole, that's another rabbit hole over there.
Thank you so much. All right. Do you want to make the announcement for your next? Well, okay. Well, I'll call you.
Okay.
I'll call you in a minute. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Let me just say a couple of things that you can see how dynamic our speakers are. This is Dr. Ife Williams. She has just really brought us to a new level. And let's just give her another applause. We just, Anna and I just came back recently from Colombia. And in Colombia, we went out to Palenque. And Palenque is, of course, one of those places where Biojo also led a revolt, brought the Africans out of Cartagena and into the forest and built their own community, much like the Quilombos in Brazil that are so famous. So in extension of the Caribbean, you have in South America, particularly in Colombia and in Brazil, you also have recognition of those days. I mean, Zumbi is recognized very much in Brazil, and the Quilombo Day is, I think, normally in November they have in Brazil. And these are very important moments. And here in Philadelphia, I was on the commission where we chose the artist for the Harriet Tubman statue that's going to be at the City Hall. That statue has been chosen. The artist has been chosen. The work is being done, and we're just waiting right now on the final placement of it and so on at the City Hall. This is one of the first times that we have had this sort of a civic response in a total way of a city to a hero. I mean, in my judgment, I've often said the greatest person who has ever lived in the United States of America was Harriet Tubman. I don't know anybody else who was greater in any sense of courage or bravery, nor in any sense of integrity or knowledge, nor in any sense of economics, because she basically took away, if you talk in economic terms, a lot of the wealth that had been accumulated in the bodies of African people. She took it away from the white racial supremacists. So we have had a tremendous history and a tremendous amount of resistance, and we need to celebrate those days and so forth. So now I'm going to, I was going to call Dr. Jabali is going to close us out, but I want to announce that on October the 6th, 2024, Diomaye Faye. You've heard of the new president of Senegal. The new president of Senegal is a young man named Diomaye Faye. Well, his father will be here. His father, his uncle, but his father, he's named for this man. Diomaye Faye will be here October the 6th. He's the director and the founder of the Pan-African Federalist Movement. This is a movement for African unity, and it's one of the largest Pan-African movements that we've had in the last 20 years. So he's going to be talking about Pan-Africanism, ECOWAS, and the West African transformation. That's Diomaye Faye, the person for whom the Senegalese president is named, his uncle, and both of them are called Diomaye Faye. So Diomaye Faye will be here, and he is an outstanding Pan-Africanist, and we will look forward to seeing him. After that, on October the 27th, we have our own attorney, Michael Cord, who will speaking on why elections matter. And that's going to be important. And then after attorney Michael Cord on October the 27th, we're going to have Dr. Jabali Ade, who's going to be talking whatever he wants to talk about. But I think it's going to be a hip-hop and the political process. This guy is amazing. So we have and then we have Dr. Nadav, and I'll try to speak from time to time. So we're just going to have a wonderful, wonderful session. We're very happy to have all of you present. I see at least two of the recent doctors from Temple University, Dr. Latif Davis and Dr. Carm Almanor. There may be other doctors in here who recently got their degrees. Will you both stand up so people can see who you are? Dr. B. And in fact, they are outstanding scholars, and we're just really delighted that they have decided to come and join. Whenever they come, we're very happy that they've come to our presence. So we want you always to remember to come to the Maleficenti Asante Institute. We're going to be closed out by Dr. Jabali Ade.
One more time, let's just clap it up, show our appreciation. Look at that. A packed house, Doc. All right. And packed online around the world, so shouts out to everybody tuning in. I just want to say, people often wonder, they say, how do these scholars, you're watching the presenter and she looks so young and Dr. Asante is moving like he's 35. I say, when you're studying, it seems like you're too busy to grow old. So the next time you want to, get young, get your mind and get in a book, because it's better than all these creams and greases they got out here today. Now, we didn't ask you to do a 2 or 3 drink minimum or anything like that. Parking was free, so on your way out, we encourage you sincerely to continue to support the Institute, because events like this and the information you received and the company you keep, the network that we're creating is truly transformative, not just in Philadelphia, but throughout the world. So we just want to thank you for your presence and your continued support and honor you. And one more time, just we want to thank our presenter. So Hotep, till next time. All right.
Remember, just a minute. You got something for?
Cards with the website.
We got cards with the website, and you can get copies of it from Dr. Ife Williams. Thank you so much. We always call upon our ancestors far and near, and we thank you so much, Dr. Ife. Thank you, brother. Well, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. Oh, brother. Oh, man.